You need to recognize how the system works. Because the truth is, I always hear a lot of people talk about how, like, why didn't I learn this in school? But essentially, the system is designed to keep us forever in the hedonic treadmill. It is not designed for us to get rich. Let's be real, when you earn $2,000, after you deduct for your taxes and filial piety allowance and everything, that really isn't a lot of money left. So to take back control, you need to do certain things. So what can you actually use the money to make your life a good life? How much money do you really need? And the side hustle gives you that control. Yeah, because I think it's very tough when there's a lot of things in life we cannot control. So we focus on what we can. A lot of these things and ideas are universal and they're very timeless. It doesn't matter how the markets shift, how economies move. It's going to be the same intangibles that will help you to become better at managing your money.
Hey coconuts, I'm sure you're familiar with our friends WorldFirst. WorldFirst is an all-in-one business account that fuels your business growth worldwide. And yes, they have been fueling TFC. I've used it myself. So WorldFirst have allowed me to open up a multi-currency account at zero cost and no fees and no minimum balance needed. So they have a new product which I'll share with you more later in the podcast. Meanwhile, if you want to check them out, link is in the description below. And yeah, welcome back to the show. Let's roll. Hey coconuts, welcome back to Chills with TFC. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut, and today I'm in studio with a special someone. Right? I personally think it's very special because I do think midway through TFC we managed to take it to another level. Right, so but she has a much longer journey in this personal finance category, and beyond the category, I think she has a lot to share lah. Starting as the girl that saved 20,000 a year, you know, with a very low income, and I think that's kind of her mark in the industry, all the way to where she is today. And she openly says she's a millionaire, right? Has a good portfolio size, happy family, and I think her ideas have changed over time. So I am very, very, very glad to be in studio with the one and only SG Budgetbabe Dawn.
Hi!
I don't know if our audience will not know you, but just for the sake, if this thing goes so viral beyond out of our ecosystem, you know, just a quick introduction.
Hi, my name is Dawn, also known online as Budgetbabe, or on my YouTube channel as your finance mama, teaching you all the things about finance that you did not learn in school. So I've been doing this for more than 10 years now. And like Reggie said, I started with my first job as a take-home pay employee of $2,000. And I saved $20,000 in that year, which I thought was a great feat.
It is.
You know, I was very proud of that achievement back then. But over the years, as you mentioned, my ideas have changed. So it's not just about saving money and cutting expenses anymore. It has moved on to encompass a lot of bigger ideas, which we'll talk about on this episode. But yes, that's me, my journey over the last 10 years. And over time, I've actually been able to grow my portfolio to $1 million, which I crossed last year, which I'm really thankful for. And I'm not going to discount the role of luck because the markets have done really well. And I remember in bad years, my portfolio has actually been down by more than 40-something%. So it comes with ups and downs, but overall, the zooming out is a long-term trend of going up. And I'm very thankful to have reached that earlier than expected because the human brain can't really comprehend compound interest. Even though I understood it and I was explaining the concept of it, but you don't really understand the real impact until you see the numbers work in your own life.
Fair. We will talk a little bit more about this, you know, but do you realize this is the first time we are sitting opposite?
Yeah.
It's the first time I'm hosting you. We've been doing so many podcasts.
Yes.
So yes. It's a privilege, you know, following her book launch, which is Take Back Control of Your Money. #1 Amazon, #1 bestseller. Not just a particular category, right? The whole of Amazon, #1.
The whole book's best-selling category.
Best-selling.
On par with... So #2 is James Clear Atomic Habits.
Hey, James. Take one side.
Cannot. He is internationally, a guru, and I hope to have as much impact. Not as much, I don't think I'll ever hit that. I hope to have a fraction of the impact that he had on the literary world and beyond. So I hope that this book will help to, break past that and bring Budget Babes to newer heights beyond greater shores than just Singapore.
To be fair, right, I think you have the impact, just in a different sphere, right? In the personal finance space, you are a thing lah. right? And it's for lack of a better way to put it, right? I think many people have read your articles, the way you think and all that. That pretty much underpins the success of the book, barely out launch already, it's a bestseller. Yeah. So I think for a lot of our audience, they may know your book, they may know snippets of who you are, they may have joined you in a different phase of your journey, maybe not from the start, maybe when you started writing more mama content,
Yeah.
I think
Earlier
there's a lot.
on, we just had that episode, right, where an ex-MAS regulator actually told me that she read my stuff. I was so honored.
Yeah. Then you see now people know when we record this episode. It's a thing, right? And a different phase. And I'm sure when you did a little bit more of like the career type of content with us, that there's also a different audience that came about, right? So all these things add together. People know you at different bits and pieces. So I want to take the opportunity to understand your full story, lah, right? So how do you start this whole thing? What made you think one day that I'm gonna, like save the money? Like what got you started? Your first milestone there.
My backstory is that I grew up in a middle-income family, and my parents didn't have enough money to send me to school, specifically university. So I had to find my way to finance my own studies. And then, of course, I got greedier as life went on, because after making it to university, you would meet people who went on exchange studies. And I wanted to go on exchange, but again, no money, right? So I had to find my ways to raise the money. And then after having that money, to live within a budget. That's how the moniker Budgetbabe came about, right? Because I was so used to living within a budget for my entire life. And I started earning my first paycheck when I was 17 years old. I started teaching tuition. My very first student was actually one that my mom found for me. So, having to do that grind. And when I went into the workforce, I wasn't the highest paid among my peers. In fact, I was one of the lower ends. So to see my peers getting paid higher and being able to save more, afford more luxury things while I was trying to pay off my exchange studies debt.
Oh my God, you took a debt.
Yes,
to
I
do
did.
exchange.
I had a loan to
You took
pay
a loan
off.
to do exchange.
Yes,
Oh my goodness.
a loan from my aunt, which I'm really
Okay.
thankful for because it came interest-free. Having to go through that life stage forces you into a certain kind of mold, into a certain kind of character. So when I came out into the workforce, I was very determined not to live paycheck to paycheck because number one, I had to clear off my debts. Number two, I didn't want to be back to those days where money became the driving force of every decision I had to make because we didn't have enough. So that comes from first being prudent, not excessively spending beyond what I had, beyond my means. And that was why I started to save. So the story of the blog was I've always wanted to be a writer. My childhood dream was to be an author, a published author. So I'm really glad this is me realizing my childhood dream finally. And when
Amazon bestseller. When you talk to me about the book, I know you're very excited. Yes.
Yes, I'm really thankful for everyone who ordered a copy to help push it to bestseller
Yeah.
status.
And if you haven't, link in the description box below, Amazon bestseller. Okay, take back control.
Also, you can get it on Kinokuniya because I just noticed that Kinokuniya is having an even better discount than Amazon now. So
now
go
you know,
and
now
check
you
it
know.
out. Essentially, when I started writing, the biggest thing in my life back then was about saving this 20,000. So that was what I went out with because my then boyfriend, now husband, said just write
Oh my
about.
God, since then
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
you've been together so long.
Yeah,
You're so
I
cute.
know. Oh, it's very easy to remember because all the
Yes.
timelines just match up, right?
Yes.
So he said, just write about what you've been talking about with your friends, and that was how the blog started.
A little bit of a historical download for some of the audience that may not know, right? So this 20,000, how do you decide on that number?
I didn't. I just saved and then I realized I hid it.
Okay.
I was like,
okay.
then I look back and oh wow, 20,000 on the take-home pay of 2,000 is quite a feat because if you do the math, it's $24,000 earned from a corporate paycheck. And I saved 20,000 of that. Of course, the secret, which is no secret, is on my blog, is that I did have a side hustle. I continued to teach tuition since 17 years old. I never stopped. And tuition was what helped me to actually save enough to go on my exchange studies. Otherwise, I wouldn't have made it to California. I wouldn't have made it to Tsinghua in Beijing. And I was very grateful that I actually managed to pull that off. So I never stopped teaching tuition. And when you start working, though, there are certain limitations with your time. So I was balancing my full-time job with a small handful of tuition kids, and that's how I was able to save 20,000 in 1 year.
Are those ideas still valid today? That means because sometimes our ideas evolve over time. It's because our situation change over time, right? But for an audience that is tuning in and, it's in a similar situation with you back then, first started, first job, just entered the workforce, not very high paid. Do you think all the things that you wrote about applies to them?
Yes. So that is the book, right? So in season 1 of the book, it's about understanding how money works. And I think what most people don't realize is that society and our general system is designed to suck money out of us. It's the reality, it's the truth. So if you look at the cover here, you realize that there are different hands grabbing the money. And this is Budgetbabe trying to hook back the fishing rod, right? To hook back and take back control of her money from her suitcase, which is essentially her income or savings. And it's being, like magnetized, attracted and taken away by all these different hands. Now, these hands, this is something that I discussed at length with my illustrator. And these hands represent the different forces in society that are there to take away your money from you. What are some of these hands? Well, you can read the book to find out and understand more, but I'll give you a few examples. Governments with taxes. I mean, let's be real. Right?
Okay.
The more you earn, the more taxes you have to pay. That's why your money disappears faster.
The middle class does feel a lot of the pinch.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Or advertisers. Everywhere you go, discount, sale. You go online, influencers, including myself, promoting something to you. Right? We gotta make a living, man. But it's just the way it works. Everyone is selling something. And everyone wants your money. Another hand could be your parents. Allowance, right? Filial piety in
We
Asian
talked about
society.
this also, yes.
Exactly. So all of these, and then the banks, your insurance agents, your wealth managers, basically everyone wants a piece of your money. Even loved ones who want to borrow money from you when they realize that you have some. So how do you then take back control? Before you do that, you need to recognize how the system works. Because the truth is, I always hear a lot of people talk about how, like, why didn't I learn this in school? Why wouldn't we taught this? Oh, the government should have taught me this. My school, my bank should have taught me this. But hey, they're not obligated to. And you know what's interesting? They don't want you to know all these things because the book explains it very well. So go ahead and read the book. I'm not going to spoil it for you. But essentially, the system is designed to keep us forever in the hedonic treadmill. It is not designed for us to get rich. Because if we get rich and we start to learn how to make money passively, how to invest, how to become financially free, then who's going to do all the work? Right? And I think it requires a certain, I'm being very blunt here, but it's the harsh truth that people need to recognize.
That is a worldview lah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because you need to know that these forces are at work. And once you understand them and recognize them, then you'll be better positioned to take back control of your money. So that's season 1. And these ideas that you're talking about, right? So that is season 1. Then season 2 goes into, okay, so once you know and recognize them, then how you take back control. And that is the how that I talk about in the early days of my blog, my journey. Because let's be real, when you earn $2,000, after you deduct for your taxes and filial piety allowance and everything, there really isn't a lot of money left. So to take back control, you need to do certain things. And the book will teach you these steps on how to do that.
Yeah.
But then beyond that, it evolves, right? So season 3 of the book then goes into growing your wealth. So once you've learned how to stay within your budget, not overspend. And it also teaches you how to earn more. Ask for more. So it covers the things that I love doing on Rise and Shine. Talking about career growth, how to negotiate for a higher pay, how to demonstrate your worth. All of these also get covered with scripts in the book to help you negotiate for the highest paycheck.
Scripts for it?
Yes, there are certain
my
scripts
God.
in there with different scenarios too for when your boss agrees versus doesn't agree versus puts you on
Is
hold.
that like a map? Do you draw a map?
No, I didn't draw, but the scripts are there as a framework. When you learn these things, you'll start to naturally have disposable income, some excess that you don't end up spending all. So what do you do with that excess? Well, you invest them because you put them into the bank. Inflation eats away at the value of your money over time. So season 3 then moves into investing. But what is investing? People always ask, Dawn, I want to learn how to invest, And there are no right or wrong. right? It's just that every decision comes with different trade-offs. Every instrument and asset class comes with different considerations. So I talk about that in the season 3 of the book. And then finally, the idea shift into season 4, which is it's not just about chasing money. Because you can be the richest person on earth, but are you going to bring all that money to your grave? So what can you actually use the money to make your life a good life? How much money do you really need? So you also give a roadmap and a guide on how to calculate what is that number that is different from everyone. Because if your number is lower, you may not need to chung so much, But if your number is higher, then you need to be prepared to work for longer or find other ways to accumulate to this stage in order for you to get that security and financial independence.
I love how you broke it down to the seasons. We'll go into some of that later. I do think even as other people, your readers, the people that grew up with you in the past 10 years, they also can see how you've evolved, your ideas, the things that you've done, that whole shift, right? Maybe starting with a little bit of that discussion of the hedonistic, cycle, because that is an important part in personal finance. When you can break that, you essentially unleash a lot of space to do a lot of things, right? So maybe talk a little bit about that from your point of view.
In the book, I share about the stories of my own life experiences and of other people, readers and friends who have actually, shared their own experiences as well. And the more you give in to these forces, the longer you will be on that hedonic treadmill. So how do you break out? Well, season 2 will teach you how to break out, but season 1 will explain to you these forces at work. For me, I never really was someone who was into branded things. Not that I am against them, because I think what is your objective? What are you trying to get out of it? And actually, investing in luxury bags and items can be an investment if you know how to do it right. I don't. It's not something that interests me. But the lifestyle inflation that I get teased for are things like, when I was in my early 20s, in the beginnings of Budgetbabe, I was all about I'm going to take public transport. Yeah, I don't take taxis. I will take public transport. I will eat chai fan, no snacks, no overpriced salads. I work in the CBD a few blocks away, and I would bring my own lunchbox to office to save, because CBD food is not cheap, right? So those were the extreme lengths that I went to as a younger version of myself. And then as you get older, you realize that these are not always feasible, because it's not always sustainable in the sense that as your responsibilities shift and your earnings abilities move up, you don't have to do these things that you needed to when you had a take-home pay of $2,000 and all these bills and debts that you had to clear. Now with more access, you can afford to invest more in your mental sanity. Instead of squeezing with the crowd, in the past, you squeeze in and I was on my phone doing this. This was how I was working. But now on the Grab ride, I can sit and I can do this, which is a lot better. When I'm young, I don't suffer the muscle aches. I used to have older colleagues say, massages really help me, with get rid of the knots in my back and shoulders. And I was like, what knots? I had no idea what those things were. And then when I entered my 30s, I was like, those knots.
Yes.
It's a biological aging thing, right?
True.
So you can't continue to do the things in your 20s when you are older all the time. And these were where some of the ideas changed. That's why they say not Budgetbabe anymore, because I don't everywhere take public transport. But just because I take Grab doesn't mean that I'm not living within a budget. I am still within my budget.
I think over time, it has also become a realization that, as your income grow and as your life has shifting priorities, a lot of time is so much more important.
Yes.
And the kind of bandwidth is so much more important. Like I can lose that $20 is okay, just give me that space so that when I go to the next spot, I'm in a proper state, right? Lifestyle
Using
inflation.
money to buy time. And outsourcing. I think becoming a mom really forced me to embrace outsourcing, because I had to start recognizing that just because I do it and I think I'm saving money doesn't mean it's the most financially savvy move. Because for instance, if I simply outsource to a helper, this is her salary, but I get more than just these things and time off my plate. Also because I am not as good, right? So maybe cleaning the house will take me 3 times longer. So why not just outsource that, spend that money, and use the time saved for something more meaningful, either to go on and earn more money or to go and spend it with my kids before I miss their growing up years, So there's this different understanding and value that you ascribe to money as I move through these different life stages. And that's what you will learn as well in the book.
And I think being a parent has been quite a pivotal, phase in your life, right? So maybe we can expound a little bit on that part, right? So I also want to talk about the investing. The investing will come, just like give me a bit of time, but I wanted to talk a little bit about like how as a young mom, okay, your eldest one's 7 now, right? So not that young already, but still relatively young, working professional mom. How did that kind of change the way you look at money? How did that evolve, your thoughts and strategies around money?
So before I had kids, I was calculating money and time in terms of utility and hours
I know,
worked.
right? Yeah.
Right, like how many hours of my life does that bag cost? That was the framework that I used to justify and validate my spending decisions. But as a mom now, it's not so much that. I mean, that still applies. It's a part of me that will never go away. But at the same time, it's also, but if I can spend this money to make my kid happy, to give them a childhood that they will remember. Because not all things can be quantified, and that really shifted a lot. I think also when you become a parent, you become more financially responsible because you realize that you have a mouth to feed. This person is completely dependent on you. And you'll be more conscious about the career moves and the decisions that you make because it's no longer just about yourself. I would have taken a lot more risk when I was younger. But as a mom, I can't always afford to do that. So I will have more considerations in mind when I think about my family and picture them in.
Is there something a little bit more practical that you can share? Like how when you didn't have family, this is how you kind of do it. And then when you had family, some of these things change.
Okay, let me use insurance as an example. When it was just me, then my dependents would just be my parents and my husband.
So your insure premium not so high. You don't need to cover so much.
Correct. Cover very little. But once you have a kid, then you have to pay for their insurance. And you also start to become the sandwich generation. So you start thinking of your on top and below. And you realize that your income now supports both sides, right? It's a very heavy burden. So my insurance premium went up over the years.
On that being said, just to be very clear with our audience, it still fits within the overall framework of being financially savvy.
Correct.
It's not that as you kind of spend more on certain things because your life changes, but it does not fundamentally change your principles when you manage your money. Is that a fair statement?
Yep, that's right. And also recognizing, like I talk about outsourcing, right, for instance. So I could technically teach my kid to swim, but am I the best person to teach him to swim? I realized I wasn't. So I pay for an external swim coach to help him. Not because I can't do it, but it just makes more sense. He will listen to a third party more than his own mother. Next time when you're older listening to this, then you know. But it's true, right? Like sometimes we will listen to the tuition teacher but not our own parents. But actually, who says that parents cannot teach? So these are some things that change over time and you'll really only understand when you become a parent. When I used to be the tuition teacher, I used to think like, hey, wow, every month I get paid a few $100s just to teach their kid how to do the homework. Not bad leh. Not difficult also, right? Then I was like, why the parents don't want to teach themselves? But never mind, I'm very happy to earn this money. Now that I'm a parent, I'm like, I would rather pay the tuition teacher. Why? Don't spoil the relationship with the child. Let the teacher scold. Then the parent don't have to score as much, right? So there are these intricacies that you don't realize until you reach that stage. And this is where your relationship with money will change. Also why it is so crucial that we set a good foundation right from the start. Because if we don't build and recognize these forces, then we'll be a victim to these forces for way too long. And it's harder to take back control the later you are.
Because the habits have formed.
Correct. Habits formation, breaking them, and also time. Because compounding needs time. If you have lesser time because you realize it later on in your life, you have a shorter runway for compounding to work.
Hey Coconuts, I'm very excited to introduce you to the latest offerings from WorldFirst. WorldFirst is an all-in-one business account that fuels your business worldwide. Their latest product, the World Card, is a multi-currency business card that allows you to get unlimited 1.2% cashback on all your business spend. If you use it on Meta Ads, Google Ads, ChatGPT, Salesforce, and more, you get additional benefits. Of course, subjected to change, terms and conditions apply. But more importantly, If today you are looking to start your business, whether it's in retail, e-commerce, or B2C, WorldFirst is your partner. Check them out, link in the description below, and back to the show. I also want to touch on the part where actually quite often you talk about like, oh, you got to increase your income, because when you first start, it's about savings, right? You cut your costs, right? And I think we talked a little bit about that, and she's famous for that as a start, but even you have admitted that you can only cut so far. The more you cut, at some point, you kind of affect your quality of life already,
Yes,
right?
correct.
So it could be a double whammy. It actually could be more problematic if you cut further. If somebody is kind of like listening in today, right? Like, what are some of these income growing advice that you would give for them?
So I started the blog in 2014 and I can't remember the exact dates, but you'll find it on my blog. Sometime in 2016 maybe was when I realized there was that limit. I couldn't cut already. Really, I cannot.
Can't budget lah.
Right,
She
yeah, it's
maxed
like
out
you
already.
max already.
Yeah.
How much more? I already taking like public transport. What else do you want me to walk? Right, yeah, so there is a limit. So that was when I realized that my messaging started to shift. And I remember in the journey, first I started by selling things on Carousel. Then I was very happy because I remember when I sold my MacBook. Wow, I got like $2,000 for a second-hand MacBook. Not bad, leh. I made $10,000 1 year selling on Carousel alone. Eventually, I realized that it was easier to focus also on building a side income and negotiate with your boss at the same time. But there are some things that are out of our control. Because in White and Shine, we talk about this. Sometimes you want a higher paycheck, but the industry that you're in, the business reality does not allow them to pay you that much. There are certain industries where they can pay you very high. Finance, tech. We all know, right? But if you want to go into, let's say, social work, I'm sorry lah. No. Or you want to go into like nursing, counseling, especially public sector, you're not going to get to those levels so quickly. And some of them, they work there for decades. They never even hit those higher levels that we see outside, right? So if you can't change your career, but you love your career and what you do, then a side hustle is another income generating idea that you can work on. But what side hustles do? So in the book, I also guide on what kind of side hustles can you do without burning out too much. And I've shared that here on White and Shine as well sometimes, as well as Chills. But it really is about finding that nice balance. Because you can do a side hustle that doesn't earn you money.
What do you call it? Like a feel good.
Yeah,
right?
like an escape.
Which in some sense can also help in helping you accumulate more in your full-time job because you have the sanity. Like I was asking a friend, like, why you do so many things? Like, aren't you very stressed out at work? My friend was saying, like, yeah, that's why I do another thing. So that I can put my mind out of work. And then when I go back to work, I'm actually in a much fresher state. I was like, oh, that's a different optics.
Yeah, exactly. So doing those two things, either or both of them, can be some ideas that people should definitely look at in increasing their income.
I think that's the next frontier of the way you think about money, right? It's not just about cutting costs, but also about raising the income. Of course, raising income probably is a little bit harder than cutting costs, unless you already cut costs to the
max already,
then that one very hard. I think that's the easy part. And then at some point you max out, you gotta look at raising income, and then it's a non-linear process, which I think we've talked a little bit about on our other podcast, Wise and Shine, and also I think in the book, which revolves around like building a skill, monetizing, having an e-commerce. There's a general stuff, right, which kind of floats on the internet also.
And this has changed, right? I mean, when I first started, having a side hustle was being seen as moonlighting. So a lot of the employment contracts back then explicitly stated that you couldn't do something else to monetize outside of work hours. You were essentially supposed to be married to your job. And any time off work is like your family or your personal things cannot monetize. But COVID changed a lot of that. And I think we're very lucky to be on the cusp of that change because with all these trends shifting, it allows us to take back better control of our money. If we remain stuck, if COVID didn't happen and that narrative still stuck around, then it'll be so much harder today because back then a lot of people were secretly doing side hustles.
It's true. And you would say it's a side hustle is different from a part-time job in your optics?
It is because with a part-time job, again, you are depending on someone to pay you the salary.
Okay, so you're back to the situation of a job.
Yes,
right,
correct. A side hustle is within your control. You can see what type of personality I am. I'm obviously very type A because even the book says take back control. We type A need to be in control, right? And the side hustle gives you that control. Yeah, because I think it's very tough when there's a lot of things in life we cannot control. So we focus on what we can.
In season 3, you talk a little bit about the investing part. I'm sure if people follow your blog, there's a lot more, Patreon even more, right? So you talk a lot about these things. And I also have kind of sensed how your investment methods have shifted over time also. When you first started, there was a lot of stock picking.
There still is today.
I know. But in our conversation, it also feels like it has evolved. At least from our casual conversation, I can tell that it has evolved. I just want to get a sense of like, do you still think stock picking is the way to go to evolve that idea and contextualize to a busy professional? How do you see that ideas shift?
This is also something that I talk about in the book, the different styles of investing, what it takes, and which one is best suited for you. The good thing also is that you don't have to pick and stick with only one style. You can evolve like I have. So in the beginning, when I first started, I was very much about staying within my circle of competence. So I only invested in SGX listed stocks, only bonds and SGX listed, very safe, and passive income because everyone likes dividends, right? These were good. I mean, I was teaching tuition, so don't teach, but got dividends come in. Why not? Sure. So I built a lot of that in the early days. But then as I went on, I realized that the growth in the Singapore stock market was limited compared to overseas international markets. So that was when I started to diversify. And then I moved into Hong Kong, China, and also US. That started to change even more when I first started getting my multi-baggers. So stocks is an idea that I explained as well. Multi-baggers are stocks that go up by more than twice. Right? Anything that, let's say you buy it at $10, it goes to 20 something or even 20, that is the start of a multi-bagger. And this can make a huge impact on your portfolio. I had one that went up more than 10 times. It's not the only one. I had several multi-baggers in my portfolio over time. And this has actually shaped the trajectory of my investment portfolio. Having said that though, multi-baggers come with its own risk as well. It's not an easy journey, right? Spotting a multi-bagger comes with certain lens and mindsets that you have to look at, and that's covered in the book. But what I would describe my investing approach now is one thing that has changed is I've embraced more ETFs. In the beginning, I know the narrative on the street is just buy the S&P 500 and forget. But I don't buy that narrative because if we look at here in Singapore, for example, you have to think about the Forex exchange. And I'll just use April to now, which is June, as an example. The S&P went up by about 20-something% from the April lows to today. But for Singaporeans, the exact return, something that I talk about on my Instagram, is only 9% because of the foreign exchange rates. And I think a lot of people don't think about that, right? If you just buy into the whole S&P narrative, then look at upcoming articles also that have been talking about how we may see one USD to one SGD in our lifetime. So how are you going to contextualize that? Even if it goes up, and it may not perform at 20-something% every year, right? That's not normal in the history of the S&P. So people tend to put all their eggs in one basket by focusing on popular narratives that they read about online. And this is also something that I tackle in the book, explaining how there are other approaches. So it's really about finding the method that resonates with you and your situation in life. If you're a very busy professional, like you pointed out, then maybe stock picking isn't for you. But what if you still wanted the multi-bagger? Because the truth is, you really only need a few multi-baggers to make your portfolio explode. That's how I got to the millionaire status, right? True. Because if I didn't have these multi-baggers, I wouldn't have gotten there, honestly.
You'll be on a slow grind. Yeah.
Very, very slow. So if I did only indexes and ETFs, I don't think I would have been able to hit million because my pay was not at that level. You could if you earn a higher pay than me, but I wasn't, right? So I've actually embraced more ETFs now. Why? Because I'm in a state of life where I now have kids. I don't have as much time to focus on the markets as I used to in my 20s. So the good thing though is because I started back then, I'm more efficient. I analyze faster. I don't have to learn the skills now. I'm only learning how to keep up. And that is lesser of a learning curve than learning from scratch now. So people who start now have a steeper learning curve. But yet at the same time, the information is also readily available. Last time in our era was all spreadsheets, right? Today, a lot of the things can be found on and add. So I will rely on secondary calculations and then only zoom into the ones that are meaningful to me
Of course.
and run my own to double check. But in the beginning, last time, 10 years ago, that did not exist. Everything you have to calculate yourself. To even strike out a stock require a lot more time than it does today. I can eliminate stocks today in just 10 minutes. But last time, no, it takes me at least 1 hour because it looks so good. You keep running the numbers, you calculate, then you get to the, this is a major red flag. I can't out next. So with that in mind, my overall framework I would describe now is like a triangle. And this is what I would usually say to most people. I think the approach that works for the majority of people today is that you build a foundation of ETFs that effectively capture your view of where the markets are going to go and the future of the world. Then at the top, layer with your stock picks. This could be stocks that you interface with on a regular basis and you believe that they have a great addressable market, a growing market. Or it could be simply companies that you have encountered in your line of work that are pretty under radar right now. And you know, because you are in that circle of competence, that these have the potential to go on to be the multi-baggers, like the Intuitive Surgicals of the world, Apple, Microsoft, Meta. These companies have gone on to be multi-baggers. And people in certain industries would have noticed that faster than anyone else.
And I always tell people, you want to understand industry, okay, very simple. Go to look at the 3 leaders of the industry, read cover to cover, you have a good sense already. But the financials, maybe you need some time, but you will start to understand, this person licensed from this, this is how they all run the business, it gives you a better sense, but it's understanding the business layer that really gives color to the number lah. What is this number about, right? Yeah, I think that's important.
Which is something that I cover in season 3. Yeah, so it's also all about how stock picking is not just about gambling. I think a lot of people, they rely on hot stock picks of the month, whatever the guru says.
Do you get annoyed when people ask you, what stock should I buy? I get very annoyed. I don't know how to explain. Yes,
all the time. And my common answer is always, I can tell you what I bought, but it doesn't mean that you should buy it. Because can you write out what is required? And, in the past, I used to publish my analysis openly on the blog. You probably have seen some of these, right? And then I don't update them, right?
Oh, then people fought you. Because it's the old stuff.
Exactly. So, and if you ask me a question about something that was written 3 years ago, that I didn't update my position on my moves, and if you were simply copying me, then you need to also think back on yourself, right? So as I realized, I started getting faulted a lot. So after a while, I realized let me just stop putting these things on the blog. And then when I stopped putting it, the loyal readers were asking, hey, how come no more? We really enjoyed those. And to be fair, I also enjoyed them because when I put these analyses out there, I had people poking holes in my thesis, which helps me to, become better, right? And I see blind spots that I may not have observed. I see different perspectives that I may not have considered before. So then I moved into running my subscription, my Patreon, where only certain people get on there and they get access, they can ask questions. And because it's a smaller group, it's easier for me to explain. But is it really needed for everyone? Not necessarily either, because honestly, there are so many stocks out there. You should be finding stocks that you know are good because you might know more things than me.
And it may or may not be stocks, right? Ultimately, it's finding your investment tool that you actually understand. And
Exactly.
I think here's the part of the story that is often missing, right? Everybody, all the hands that are trying to grab your money, right? They always tell you to be fast because, they want to grab your money now, ma. Truth of the matter is there are always opportunities, right? There are always cycles. There are always things that people don't want that could be, a value, play. There are always, things that everybody is hyping for that, you may not want to go anywhere near. So all these things always exist.
Exactly.
Since I started investing, right, there's so many trends. It's always framed as this is the next big thing.
Now it's AI trend.
Yeah. And shortly after, there will be what I call a hype ETF. Some fund manager will structure this and then put it out as an ETF and then will make everybody buy. And shortly after, it will all drop, right? I'm not saying that definitely, but when you buy into the hype, you're buying into a premium level that does not make sense from a business fundamental. That means you are buying too much risk.
One important thing to add on that is that people tend to wait too long to learn, right? So you always oh, when I earn this amount of money, or when the markets crash. But I'll use this year, April, as a very good example. PT, I already finished writing the book by then. If not, April's incident would definitely be in this book. But to give you an example, in April, when the markets crashed, a lot of people suddenly wanted to learn how to invest. But the market is crashing now. What you should have done was to actually prepare your list, your watch list of things that you wanted to buy and invest in before the market crash happens. Then when the crash happens, you go in. You want to spend time learning it when the crash is ongoing and then search for the thing. The crash might be over before you knew it. Okay, but at the same time, many people, they also didn't believe that. Like, no, actually, I think this crash is just the beginning of something bigger. We are going into a recession. Valid, okay, because no one knows what the future holds. But because you think then it is going into a recession, so you take your time. Then when the market suddenly recovered, because we literally only had 1 month, right? The crash lasted for, not 1 month, 1 week.
No, yeah, it's very short. Yeah.
1 week only. And you only had that 1 week. Then after that, it started recovering and you're like, oh, I think it will drop again. Or, no, it's too high. I missed the boat. I wait for it to come back down. And it never came back down. In fact, if you invested in that second week, the week after it started recovering, right, you will still be up by quite a bit. But a lot of people are like, no, I think this is a fake rally. We're going to... So, you see, the problem is people always get so stuck on all these and they don't go and learn. It requires a very different mindset shift, and that's why I hope this book will change for the majority of people, because when you start to realize that you need to recognize these things before they happen, you need to start being prepared. When the opportunity comes, you are ready, and that is when you will make your life-changing wealth. And one thing about this book which I wanted to add is when I was writing this, I was very mindful of the audience, because I wrote this as an answer to everyone who discovers me for the first time and they are, Dawn, I'm overwhelmed, where do I start? My typical answer prior to that was just, oh, well, if you want free resources, I have my blog with almost 800 over articles you can go and comb through. There are keywords, you can just do SEO searches, but comb through, you need time, but it's all there. Otherwise, on Instagram, I also have over 800 posts and you can comb through them as well because there's lots of insightful stuff that I put out. But I realized people are either too overwhelmed or lazy. I don't know which. Maybe both. I don't know. Okay. So yeah. I started to realize that when I answered them in that way, even though it's the correct way, it did nothing for them. So then I thought, what if I could actually just put it all in a book that is organized in a manner? So if I were to read out right now, so season 1 talks about understand how money works. I talk about why we remain trapped in the endless cycle, why you will never learn these things in school, your bank, your government, inflation. And then season 2 tells you about how to get back into the driver's seat and take back control. Season 3 then talks about all the different mindsets and key things that you need to know, such as time is your biggest ally. What does it mean to invest? And is the 60-40 portfolio even relevant today? How to automate, how to pick individual stocks, and also because my audience include like professionals. Like we learned that the regulators are reading my blog and my Instagram. The hedge fund managers and bankers are also on my accounts and following what I do. So this can't be too basic either. And I had segments in there with successful hedge fund managers and influencers and people who contributed some ideas and insights that I think will be very timeless. So that's something that I'm really proud about. And then finally in season 4 is how do you then live rich and free? So I talk about the 4 stages of wealth, which one of my hedge fund manager friends said it was very insightful. So what are these 4 stages? Go and buy the book and then you'll find out. Also, I incorporated what the layoffs taught us. Because I read a lot of finance book myself. And I realized that this is not something we're taught. A lot of the books don't teach that. They teach you how to get back control. Yes. But it is personal finance and succeeding in it. And it's more than just recognizing, taking back control, but also the wisdom of that understanding that comes when you have lived through certain life milestones and learned from certain people. So I've been very lucky because I've had access to some of these people and I've tried to incorporate their ideas and teachings into the book as well, especially ideas that I find meaningful and deserve to be spread more.
Where is your mind space now when it comes to money, and how do you see yourself going forward?
So I have reached 1 million in my portfolio as of last year. And initially, when I first started this journey, I used to think, hey, when I reach the 1 million, I'm going to switch strategy. I'll put all that 1 million into dividend stocks. right? Then I'll do a 6 to 8% dividend a year.
No, because the structure also kind of makes sense with
Correct.
a certain capital size.
By then your capital base is big enough,
Yes,
right? And,
yes.
and I can leave off the 6 to 8% on a 1 million. But then I realized that now in this stage of life, I can do that for myself, but it doesn't include my family, my kids' legacy, my parents. So I had to change that number. So that's why in the book I also talk about what is your number, because that could change over time, and mine certainly has. So the next mind space really is all about my personal goals, like getting to the next number. At the same time, I want this book to impact more people. I like teaching, and the biggest reward I get is when people tell me something I've taught have transformed their life for the better. There's like US context and Hong Kong and Korea examples as well. A lot of these things and ideas are universal, and they're very timeless. It doesn't matter how the markets shift, how economies move. It's going to be the same intangibles that will help you to become better at managing your money. No matter these changes, these frameworks and mindsets will always remain. So I hope that, the next mind space for me is to have this book reach a larger audience. I'm very thankful for all the support that has brought this book to Amazon #1. I really never imagined that would happen. At the same time,
She just wanted to be an author, not an Amazon bestseller.
Yeah, I know. So I'm really, really thankful. And now I'm hoping that it will continue to get on more lists, bestseller lists and all. I want to reach a point whereby hopefully in a few months down the road after this book is out, people will write in to say like, I read your book and it really changed the way I view my money, or it made me, wake up and do this. It made me clear my debt. I used to get a lot of those emails in the early days of the blog, but I want to help people at where their life stage is and where their financial journey is. And I hope this book will address that.
One last question. What has stayed true throughout this whole change that you think is a wisdom everybody must practice?
Staying within your budget. Always starts first from staying within your budget, because only when you do that, then you do all the other things like growing your income, got more access, then you can invest, then you can do more things. But it all starts from first. If you cannot stay within your budget, you have nothing to talk about.
Thank you. It's very nice. For all of you, if you're tuning in, please support her, get the book, take back control of your money. Maybe you're not supporting her, maybe you're supporting yourself, right? Just using it as a medium to think. Sometimes we already know a lot of stuff, but reading someone write a thought through piece is a very different process, because we learn bits and pieces.
Yes, get the book for yourself or for your loved ones, and I hope that this will reach a bigger audience. And I want to start getting those messages of how this book has transformed their lives.
I hope you enjoyed the book, and I thank you for your time. We'll see all of you next week in the next episode of Chills with TFC. If you have not already put your email address at thefinancialcoconut.com, please put it there so that we can reach you directly, maybe at our next event. With that, thank you all for today. We'll see you next week. Meanwhile, take care. Bye-bye.